Yes, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and joining us now is our regular contributor on a Thursday night, Phillip Ullmann. We can't decide whether to call you the Money Man or the Manna Man, but what we'll do is we'll work that out for the future.
Okay. Phillip, your boots.
Phillip, your boots. Wow. And, of course, James McCrory, our guest co-host, sticks with us. Now, look, you're watching the debate on Starmer and Sunak last night. I think it's fair to say you just thought it was shocking.
Absolutely. I actually felt sorry for both of them. I mean, they're coming out day after day with the same old messages. I think it's humiliating. It's embarrassing. They're obviously not enjoying it. And I think it's just humiliating for the whole country.
Because they're so bad. They're like schoolboys that are debating.
The system is collapsing, and they don't know what to say. They're struggling, and it's, to me, the signs of a system which is at the end of its useful life. It's not working.
So you told us last week about this idea of bank bailouts that you hate, this idea of inflation, which you think is incredibly dangerous and plunging people into poverty. And it's fair to say that everything you've ever come on has been and said has been fairly challenging and informative. Today, you want to tell us a little bit about debt and why you think that debt is the enemy of this country and why we should stop paying debt back.
Yes, I mean, as you've mentioned in previous weeks, money is simply lent into an existence. So the banks, the commercial banks, literally lend money to a person. They literally say, "There's money you owe me," and spend it.
Yeah, so they press a button.
They press a button, and that's the way money is created. People don't realise that it's created.
And our money in the bank is then automatically worth less because it's basically a reverse tax.
Correct. The money is literally magicked into existence, and they can create as much as they want. There is no limit to the amount that they create.
But it reduces our savings, is what I'm saying, because there's more money out there, and therefore your £100 is only worth 93
correct.
In real terms.
So what they're doing is they're lending more and more into existence. Of course, that's creating more and more debt. Now, there's 4 different types of loans that they do. The first is loans for real estate, for property, whether it's residential or commercial. What does that do? If you lend more and more money for buying property, what's that going to do to property?
Push up the prices.
Yeah, so it increases the prices. Now, we think that's good, wonderful, I've got a return on my investment, but it's actually not, because it's the money that's becoming less valuable because there's more and more of it. So you've got husband and wife both taking a mortgage, so you may be living in the same house.
So the point here, just to get your head round, is the house might be worth more, but actually it's the same house, and the problem is the money in your pocket is worth less, and that means your groceries are more expensive. So the fact your property is worth twice the amount is irrelevant because it's the same property, but the fact your money buys you less food is relevant.
In fact, it's worse than that, because the property, if you want to upgrade, now costs a lot more.
Everything. So what's happening is...
You can't upgrade.
Debt is a burden. You've got to pay it. We have a legal system which looks after creditors, which means that if I owe money, I've got to pay interest for a start, which means I owe more and more. I've got to repay it, and then if I can't pay it, I lose my house. They foreclose. So the whole system is rigged against people, and these banks just create more and more and more.
Why? Yeah, but so I get all that. I understand that we're pushing people into poverty. I understand that concept. It's not your house going up in value. It's the pound in your pocket becoming worth less. Understand all that. But that's not an argument for saying don't pay your mortgage back.
It's a question of what the function of the debt is and what the function of the loan is. You look about historically, when I was in a local village, and I needed you to borrow your cow, and you wouldn't go and try and find somebody who could swap a cow for grain. You'd actually do a favour. You say, okay, you can have my cow for a week, but when later on I need a favour from you, you do me a favour. Yeah. So you don't automatically repay it. There's no concept. It's effectively you're in a relationship.
Yeah. So if you think about it,
of you automatically have to repay every loan is by no means something that's always been around.
But you have an IOU, wouldn't you? IOU, a chicken egg or something.
Well, if I don't need it, the bottom line is if it's stuff which is over and above what I need, and therefore, but why should it? Well,
just a note to remember. That's what money is. So it's an I owe you 3 eggs.
Yeah,
that would
I think I'm with this. So the basic concept is, effectively, through most of British history and indeed world history, we're in relatively small communities. So Mr. McCrory, the Eggman, supplies the eggs.
Yeah.
Mr. Ullmann, the blacksmith, supplies metal products or whatever, and you sort of all constantly not bartering with each other, but getting what you need off each other, and then
you ask, what is the function? What's money for? Yeah. And money should be to ensure that everybody gets what they need.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. We live in a society where what do you need? You need a meaningful job. You need food. You need clothing. Yeah. And everybody has those needs. And if money is working properly, everybody's needs are met.
What about supply and demand, though? Because that changes the price. How does that?
No, the answer is prices should not change.
But what if there's less of something one year? Shouldn't it go up in price?
What we need to create is a society where everybody is focused on meeting people's needs.
It's communism.
No, it's not communism.
No, but hang on a second. Before you go any further, this basic concept that Philip's come up with, that people are going to initially go, oh my God, this is crazy. But this basic thing, which is, right, here's a major problem. We are pushing people into poverty by creating all this credit and all this debt. Screw the banks, right? We've had enough of it. Yeah. I mean, that basic concept, I'm not sure I'm 100% with it, but I do accept that there's a fundamental point here, which is that by creating all this money, you're creating inflation, you're making people poorer, and frankly, it's a parasitic act.
Well, it sounds pretty good, obviously, just to not be able to pay off debt. As anyone with a mortgage, myself included, can attest. My question to you, I suppose, Philip, would be: are you suggesting that there's no place for lending in a sort of modern society? And if you do part one and part two, if you do forego your debts, if you lent someone's cow and then you didn't do them the favour back, they're not going to lend you their pig. What will they do in this case?
Let me explain to you from the beginning how the way I describe the system is flow and let go. So there's two different. There's money which has to flow, which is cash, which, by the way, as we explained in previous shows, doesn't actually exist. We've lost the concept of cash. The concept
I've got about 60 quid on me.
Yeah, but that's not yours. It's money.
That's very rare.
Yeah, but it's not cash. Because cash is something that I'm in control. The money that we have is actually a credit in the bank, which means the bank.
This is this whole idea of it being a token rather than it being actually backed up by anything.
It's not tied to gold anymore.
No, that's right. Which means
I promised to pay the bearer.
But when we came off the gold standard in what,
1971?
Oh, right.
No. Sorry, we came off. America went off the gold standard in 71. UK, as you say, much earlier.
But see, I was talking.
Once that means there's no link. There's no fix on the amount of money, which means money can be produced.
I understand that, but surely you're not suggesting getting rid of the concept of money and going back to a barter economy.
Oh no, not.
So what I was struggling to see is, what are you suggesting? That it's all debt, both domestic and governmental, should be foregone?
The answer is, if it's magicked into existence, look at what, as we've explained before, literally the banks just create a loan, say there's you owe me.
Yeah, I understand all that, but what are you calling for?
And it's creating inflation. The money's not going to ever repay this. The government's never going to repay it. We're not going to repay it because it's just too much.
Well, I mean, most people are probably going to repay their mortgages.
No, but government bonds are not being repaid.
No, they're not going to be repaid.
Well, that's a different thing. So it's government. So, but I'll come back to say, look, most people, there's not over a 50% default rate on mortgages. Most people will, over the course of their lifetime, pay off their mortgages. Some people will not, and they will be put in a very difficult situation. I suppose what I'm asking is, what are you calling for? Are you saying that all debts should just be forgone? Both
yes, cancel the debts, everyone gets their house for free.
And governmental.
What I'm saying, let's be clear, let me break it down into two bits. We have to have cash, which is actually mine, which is not what we currently have in the bank, which is the equivalent of the old gold, which is a single entry. It's just mine. It's not the bank owes me. It's actually just like my money on a spreadsheet. And if I give it to you, you don't need the bank. Think about it. Why do you need the bank? Why do you need?
Well, I mean, so that's the argument. That's the argument that people in favour of cryptocurrency.
Hang on. Let's because we haven't got to the second bit of it. So here's the bit that I get.
Yes.
I completely get. However the system is, you have a currency that cannot be devalued because you can't create more of it at the touch of a button.
And there's no bank in that case. It's literally one entry. There's no need for a bank because that confuses it. Because what banks do is they actually create more and more and more, which inflates it.
Double entry bookkeeping.
I'm not here to speak on behalf of the banks, but I do wonder what we're calling for.
Stop for a second, because you said you needed to do two things.
There's two things.
And one of them was cash.
We've mixed up. What we've got is a mixture of cash what we think is cash and credit, it's actually all credit. So we call it cash, but it isn't cash because it's not mine, because it's money that I owe the bank, which is continually devalued. So what we need to, and we haven't got proper loans because it's all mixed together. The banks should be using that money to provide meaningful employment. We should, and we got loads of people who are unemployed in the country. We've got loads of people on benefits who are not meaningfully employed, and therefore the money is simply not achieving what it should be doing. So there's two different things. The first thing is we need to actually start to create real money, which means it's not a double entry, it's just one entry like crypto, but it's
explain to me very quickly double entry.
In the way
oh, shut up, everyone.
He wasn't going to miss
double entry means you owe the bank. It means there's two parties involved. There's the bank and there's you, and that you lend the money to the bank. That's what double entry in very simple terms means. I say you don't want that. What you want is just my money, like imagine a spreadsheet. The money is there. When I buy a good from you, I give you the money. It's in your bank. It's yours. There's nothing else involved. You don't need a bank. You simply don't need two parties involved. Can you see? You just need the one.
Fine, but what's
that would then mean, if once we start to move towards that, we then start to find that you control the amount of money, because you haven't got a bank who just create as much of it as they want, because you're actually limiting it. You've got fixed amounts of money in the system, and then you'll stop inflation and you'll stop the currency being devalued. You'll stop. So
I mean, this is the thing that I find interesting. So Philip is very against the banks and is saying, well, OK, they magic the money into existence, screw them. And I get that. And some people will agree and some people will disagree. But one thing that I do think is a very strong argument is this idea of devaluing money by being printed by either government or banks.
As we explained, the governments are totally out of control. We looked at the debate yesterday, and they're all talking about, yes, I can spend this, that, and the other, and it's all costed. But it's garbage, because what happens in the real world is that they raise a certain amount of tax. They spend more, as you know from your experience in government, they spend more than they raise. And the rest of it they raise by bonds, which are IOUs. And those are actually paid for by the banks, who actually magic the money into existence. So there's no control over.
Well, shouldn't there be quantitative squeezing to bring it back to where it was?
No.
Taking money out of the system.
You don't hear enough about quantitative squeezing.
We need to squeeze it back, don't we?
We have to create a system which is accountable. And what happened on that debate? There's no accountability. No one has a clue what they're talking about. Genuinely,
and the banks get bailed out. They can't lose.
Yeah, but the big problem is with this, and I'm going to go to James for a second. So Philip's talking about some big issues. Most of us have followed most of it, but very few people will understand absolutely all of it.
Speak for yourself, Andre.
Can you start from the beginning, Philip?
But the fundamental problem is there are some basic principles here that are not true, which is cash is not cash in the traditional sense. Yeah. Debt is not. Your house isn't rising in value. Your pound is becoming worth less, and real poverty is being created by creating money at the touch of a button. That's got to be a worry, right?
I don't particularly disagree with any of the diagnosis. It's more the solution that I'm grasping for. And to us, you know far more about this than I can. But you come back to the same problem, I would suggest, which is twofold. Firstly, any system of financial transaction, whether you want to call it cash, crypto, dollars, pounds, whatever, is based on two people agreeing that is currency, and that's how currency gets its currency. And the second is, if you say you're going to have some sort of moratorium on lending, you're going to write off bad debts, whatever it might be, you are going to discourage lending, almost by definition. Now, you can say that's a good thing, but then what is your system, for example, of property ownership going to look like in this country? You're talking about some quite interesting, pretty radical things, but what I haven't seen, if I'm honest with you, is a solution that convinces me as an alternative to the symptoms that you quite rightly identify.
The answer is that we need to use money to ensure that everybody's fully employed. So that the moment...
But what money are you talking about? You're talking about a new currency?
We have to, because we haven't got money.
Well, but I mean, what if you said to me, oh, yeah, mate, I've got a new currency. I'd say, no, you're all right, thanks, pal, I'll give it sterling.
This is the government. Sorry, this is not me, personally. This is not crypto. This is the government creating...
But you want the government to come up with a new currency, having say they failed on the currency?
No, the new pound. A new pound, but it's a single entry. It's not a double entry, i.e. it's not that the single bank, which is the state, is lending you money. It's actually.
But hang on a second. This could be still the pound. It could still have the same banknotes, couldn't it?
Well, the digital pound will be a thing, won't it? I mean, I don't follow this debate particularly closely, but that is going to come. They will do something.
Wait, everyone. Let's pour petrol on this. Philip, isn't central bank digital currency the solution?
The central bank digital currency is still the central bank lending the money into existence. It's a
Ponzi scheme.
So I suppose my question is, who's the arbiter?
You are. In other words, what we've got to do.
No, but my arbitration might be very different from yours. That's the whole point of currency.
So what we have to do.
You can say this money's kosher, mate, and I can say I don't agree.
It's on a single ledger, effectively, and it's not mine. There is a single.
I love the use of the word kosher.
So what we've got to do, the way the system works, is you have the right amount of money within the system, which doesn't change, and that's the.
You're asking the same people that you're quite rightly criticising for getting the system so wrong, and now you're asking them to come up with the same people.
They are almost. They're just setting up the system.
So they are,
but they're not. But they're not.
So
effectively,
there's only one way to sort this out.
At the beginning.
There is only one way to sort this out. We've decided to continue this segment for another 15 minutes after the break.
And then there's a fight if we can't.
But look, I'll tell you what would be interesting is if people have got calls about finance or money. Obviously, we're not going to give you financial advice because if you take financial advice off a political commentator, you're an idiot. But it's not.
Or off us, even more of an idiot.
But it is an interesting subject. 0344 499 1000. You can send us a WhatsApp 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. You just put the word talk plus your message. You can tweet us on at
Virtual Ash at Andre JP Walker.
Yeah, it's difficult here, isn't it? Because, by the way, somebody's got in touch called Pete who said, "Now this is." So Philip likes to call himself the Manna man, right? This is manna from heaven, Finn. Pete said, "What you really need to do is look up the historical meaning of a jubilee."
I know. I'm happy to discuss that.
You've got about 2 minutes before we go to the break. What is a jubilee?
Well, there's two different things. As I said to you, you've got the money that flows, but you then do have to have. So what happens is you start at the beginning by actually issuing every family with the amount of money. Let's say based on if they have 2 adults and 3 children, you're given a certain amount of money at the beginning of the day. They then spend that money during the day, and the idea is to get the money to flow around the system on a daily basis.
So the state sets a wage for everybody in the country.
That's sort of what we got, haven't we?
There's a thing
sitting on their beds smoking fags.
Well, you have to work out. The bottom line is, if you don't have limits, then people can do
But hang on. But about the Jubilee specifically.
Okay, so hold on. So the money flows around. So at the end of the day, the money would have flowed around the system, but unfortunately, it won't all go where it needs to go. So some people will have no money because they won't have had a job, and most of the money will go to Palo Alto because that's the way the system will currently work. You then need to deal with the fact that some people haven't got money for tomorrow because it's not flowed, and that's where lending comes into existence. You need to lend the person because they need their money to buy food for tomorrow. That's the loan. But the purpose of the loan is to give people what they need. So you then lend them the money because they haven't got a job. Now, the reason why you need to record it as a loan is because you want to make sure that they don't become dependent, that every day they're effectively receiving the benefit, they don't find a job. So you need to incentivize to find them a job. So the purpose of the loan then becomes not to make money for the creditor, but to ensure that people actually have meaningful jobs. So we're going
to come back and talk about this more, but look, I mean, it's gone off like a nuclear bomb, the idea of people being paid every day and that sort of thing. But we can talk about it more in a couple of moments. We're still here with James McCrory and Phillip Ullmann, who has dropped a bombshell on his plans for money. We will be back just in a couple of moments. You're asking one. I can't work out what the name of the show is anymore, Ash.
Well, it just says Andre Walker. It doesn't say Ash, does it? Yeah, but now it does, look.
On some outlets, it's calling it The Late Show with Andre Walker. On some, it's calling it The Late Show with Andre Walker and Ash. And then on others, it's saying it's Nightline. I don't know where that came from.
I like it.
Nightline.
That's what Wales show was called before I was on it, just for a couple of weeks.
So they've just
gone full circle.
So they've got something from like 1982 and decided
no, 95.
Do you put the accent on your Twitter handle? That really is a commitment to the accent.
The acute accent.
Yeah, the acute accent on the E on the Twitter handle.
Can I tell you something? Twitter did it for me.
Oh, hello. You've made it then, haven't you? Can we interest you in an accent, sir?
I got a blue tick, which I called at the time an American knighthood. But yeah, so...
That's cleared up though, hasn't it, the blue tick?
Well, the problem is then you had to pay for it, and then last week they wanted £110 for the year.
Is that right?
I couldn't work out what it was for, so I lost my blue tick. Anyway, if you've just tuned in, we are doing a regular Thursday night segment with Phillip Ullmann. Just to explain, for those of you who don't know, Phillip employed 100,000 people. He's one of the biggest business leaders. It's fair to say that he didn't like his business anymore because it supplied...
He hated himself. He looked himself in the mirror.
It's fair to say that he had a bit of a road to Damascus conversion on whether he should be sending people, low-paid and low-skilled workers, into factories and warehouses. And some of these people, unfortunately, would have to share beds. Literally, one person would share it during the day, another person would.
But what was the actual pivot point? That's interesting. What was your actual point where you go, I can't do this anymore?
Well, I realised that I wasn't actually adding much to
yeah, but what was in that minute? What happened in that minute? That
what happened was
pinged in your head?
Deloitte, who advised us, said to me, "Would you do?" There was an opportunity. They said, "Would you do this as a social enterprise?" And I didn't know what a social enterprise was. And then I started researching it. There's a way of running businesses to look after people.
Wasn't that the ship on Star Trek?
That was a Starship Enterprise. And so I realised there was another way of running businesses where you actually look after people and you look after the planet. And none of us are doing it. We don't do it.
But hang on,
which means the business is running.
But you personally own. I mean, this is the thing that I find extraordinary. I don't know what the value of the business was, but you personally own a business that turns over £1 billion a year. Right,
yeah.
With 100,000 employees, right? It's fair to say, we can say this late at night, you're pissed with it, right? You've got that much.
Yeah, think of all the wages, 100,000 people would have paid.
But at the end of the day, you are a phenomenally rich person. You're not just the 1%, you're the 1%, the 1%, right? And then you decide to go, well, you go home and go, listen, darling, I've decided to give it all up.
Look, money doesn't interest me. I'll be straight with you. I'm not apologising for it. I want to help people change their lives. It's not this because having a number in the bank account. What difference does it make? I don't want to.
Yeah, but that's really unusual.
I don't want umpteen properties. I just want to live with my family. I've got a wonderful family. So why do I need the money?
People always say, why don't these people ever retire? And you are actually the one person that has done that.
You've got because the point is, I realise that businesses can change people's lives. If we get this right, if we get the model of money working properly, and money starts being about meeting people's needs, we can actually. So I tried to turn Cordant, the company that we owned, into a social enterprise. I did three things. One, I capped salaries for the highest to 20 times the lowest paid. So I wanted to make sure that we don't have salaries out of control. Two, I capped the dividends of the shareholders. And three, I wanted all of our clients to pay a living wage, not a minimum wage, which is what we paid, a living wage. But I couldn't get my clients to do it. So effectively, I realised, even though we owned the company, I realised I wanted to do good.
You were powerless.
I was powerless, even though we owned it, because I was part of an ecosystem which wasn't interested in looking after people.
Can you imagine that, James? We're going to come on to the most asked questions about money. But can you imagine that? You've got £1 billion turnover, 100,000 staff.
No, it's already the answer.
I mean, at one point you had a chauffeur-driven car and all that sort of crazy.
I don't need
stuff.
any of that.
Then that person says the economic model's so broken that not even I can fix it.
So I tried to fix it with my company, even though I'm at the top. And I can't do it. So then I start to realise we have to start working with the state. We have to start looking at fundamental assumptions. We make decisions. That was what was so sad about the debate yesterday, because there are no ideas. No one has a clue. Everyone sees that we're out of control. The young woman on the debate said, "I can't buy a house. I can't get a job. What's my life worth?" And that's what we're dealing with. And no one came up with any ideas. So I realised that there are certain forks of the way. We make basic mistakes in the way we organise society. Basic mistakes, and then we never go back and revisit them. The reason why they're struggling, both Labour and Conservative, is because no one's going back to first principles and say, what should we actually be doing? Forget about the umpteen mistakes that we've made, which have compounded into a system that doesn't work. We need to start going back to the beginning and start to say what...
Politics is for simpletons now. You know, in the 80s and 70s, they talk about the balance of payments, and it'd be quite a complicated economic discussion, and now it's just get 3 lines in the paper, so there's no actual...
one
they don't really know
it, and the numbers are meaningless, and they talk about, I'm going to spend this, I'm going to say... It's all costed, but no one has a clue whether...
But the politicians used to understand it.
Can I ask you some really basic questions here? Right, okay.
Yes. Do.
Okay, so these are the 5 most asked money questions. Question number 1, is there such thing as good debt?
Well, it depends on what you see the function of debt. I don't think there should be any debt. This is the point I'm saying, that if the role of money is to ensure that people's needs are met, the reason why you need a loan is to ensure that the person gets a meaningful job, or so that they're not employed. You need to get them into employment.
What about to start a business?
Once you've advanced them the money and they're no longer and they're in employment, why do you need to repay what happened historically?
What about investing in a business, though? They want to start a business, a garage or something.
That's fine. So you use money to actually employ people.
So that's good debt then?
No,
lending it to someone who's going to start a business.
By definition, in a moment, that based on the system that we live in, is creditor-focused debt, which means 1, it has to be repaid. 2, you've got to pay interest, and 3, if you don't pay it, it's foreclosed. You lose your house, which means it's horrible. But
you might develop a very good business.
No, what I'm saying is that form of debt you don't need. You don't need.
But how do I buy a house then?
No, so the answer is we have to ensure that all labour is being used. So let's say there's a shortage of houses. Money's flowing around the system. So if I have more money coming into my account than I need, I've got to go out and find what jobs need to be done, and to ensure that people you match money to needs. And you go out into the streets, okay, there are houses that are missing, so the labour will be directed to those jobs. The houses will be built, and therefore labour's being deployed, and therefore you don't need...
Like workers' cottages.
Actually, hang on a second.
Historical. A debt is a historical record of what's happened, but it's finished. Why do you need to...
hang on a second. I mean, my dad built a 6-bedroom house for 150 grand. Right. Now, most people would think, my God, a house for 150 grand. The reality is, the value of your house is based on all of this inflation, isn't it? That's why people have got an £800,000 house. So actually, when you're talking about employing the bricklayer and buying the bricks, it's not as crazy.
Remember, the land is a gift from God. So effectively, that should. We were discussing this before. The character. The reason why land is so expensive is because it's taken by people, and they force the price up and up by magicking money into existence, and then it becomes a huge number.
Anyway, I've got to pull you up there because we want to go through these 5 questions.
Okay, I'm listening.
How much money should I save for an emergency fund or?
Well, again, in my model, it's not going to work because I think money. I don't think there's any. You shouldn't be hoarding anything.
Gold, you say?
No. The reason why I'm using gold is because ultimately money should not be hoarded. Money should be flowed around the system. I don't think there's any
in case of rogue government.
You think in a fair society nobody should need to have to hold money?
Correct, because money should be flowing around the system, and you should be use it or lose it. If it's not actually needed, get rid of it.
Now the other thing is that you don't have any money, do you? You have everything in gold.
There's 2 different things. I understand.
No, but
in my current situation, because I know the system is going to collapse, I don't trust the banks because the banks are going to go under. When, I can't tell you, but it's going to be. It's not long because there's so much debt and it's going to topple over. So if I want to preserve, now what I'm doing is I'm investing in businesses that change the world. I've got a partner in America. These are real businesses. These are not these that we work with federal labs that do world-class research, really, that can change the world. And these are businesses that are being run for people and for planet, which is what I always dreamt of. So I'm out of the old abuse of workers on running 18 miles a shift, sharing beds, living on a packet of biscuits.
And gold is indestructible.
Now, so in a short term, I want to put that money into meaningful businesses. So I've got to hold it. And gold, or ETC...
But not actual gold. I think you should actually buy physical gold. That's the only really safe way.
You can watch my house when people come in and start
I'm not going to hide it. I'll bury it.
No, it's got to be in a
the other extraordinary thing, and we're going to move on, but we're going to move on to some more questions. But the other thing that I've been told about your house is that your house looks completely ordinary, but it's like
but it's made of gold.
It's a TARDIS.
Painted.
My wife will be angry with me for talking about the house.
Through the key.
But
I'm saying 10 grand.
18 basement floors.
But also, I think the other point is that you don't want to show off any wealth. Okay, but anyway, let's move on.
You've ruined it now.
What is a budget, and do I need one as a person?
Again, all of this is in the current climate, which is not the way I see the system. The answer is no. That's why I'm not the money man, I'm the money man. I've got a different set of ideas about how we don't hoard, and therefore effectively every day you get what you need. So we start to create a flow. So these questions are unlikely to actually address what I'm talking about, because I'm not the money man, I'm the money man.
It's not as catchy.
You think that the problem is that to have a budget at the moment is fair enough, but actually we shouldn't have to have that in the future.
I should be able to trust the system, that I know that every single day I'm going to get what I need to buy food and to buy clothing. That should flow into my bank account every single day. That's what I need to know. And therefore, if we get the money flowing around the system, you don't need hoarding. You don't need to store.
Are you talking like a new universal income type system?
No. It's the idea is that you get it for a job, for actually meaningful employment. You're getting. So you're not. The idea is not that you give people money for doing nothing.
Right.
The idea is that people, if you've got more money in your bank account than you need, you then have to actually go out into the street and find out what jobs needs to be done and actually match.
I mean, I'll tell you what's interesting about that, because it actually alters the nature of investment, doesn't it? Because if I'm required to spend all the money in my bank account rather than hoard it, what I actually do is effectively buy, if you like, social capital. So what I do is I go, well, okay, there's a bloke unemployed down my street. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get him to paint all the railings or whatever. And so suddenly money is pushed into developing the community. You don't have any money in your bank account, but what you do have is a very vibrant community. Yeah. And whilst this is good, and this is the thing that struck me about Philip's point, that even though that is about as far away from our system as it is possible to be, actually, for a lot of human history, it has been the way that we've lived.
You're asking what is the function of money, basically, and in our system it's about getting as much as I can for myself. I'm greedy, I want as much money in my bank account as I want.
Isn't that the human condition, though?
No, it isn't. It's the way we currently. I agree with you, but what you realise, people really want to meet the needs of others, and what's much more meaningful is actually catering for the needs for other people.
Right.
There's employment.
Right. By the way, before we've got 2 minutes left, my producer believes that you're going to answer the questions. What's our APR and what's the credit score? Right. No, he's just not going to do it.
APR. Interest rate should be 0, so the APR should be 0.
It's amazing, isn't it, James? Just in the last 2 minutes of this, here's the thing that's amazed me about Philip. So it's fair to say that the number one thing you think when you hear him is go, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And then you start to think about it. How bad would the world be if nobody had a mortgage, everybody had a house, and actually you were investing in your community rather than just sticking money in the bank?
I think credit to Philip for putting his money where his mouth is, for want of a better word, and actually trying to change the system, having seen its negative effects from the very top. I think I think, as I said before, I think your diagnosis of the problem is very good. I think some of the solutions will scare people because they're not. I'd say this as well. For the last, it's not been the case over the last 2 or 3 years, but in the West, as households, as people, but as countries as well, we've gorged on an era of cheap credit, and we have lived beyond our means for a number of years, and I'm afraid now the chickens are coming home to roost.
100%.
And if you look at the amount of money that this government spends on just servicing its debt, not paying off its debt, just so it's more than like the education and the Home Office budget combined. It's a disgrace, and no one is having. No one ever seen that conversation.
No one's even asking what money is for. No one's thinking. Go back to principles. What's it for?
As a final comment, this is the thing that really, really got on my goat when I discovered, when Philip told me, the money that we are spending to service that debt, what we are paying to rent, is money that somebody just pressed a button and created by the touch of a button. And so we are spending more. What was it on education? We're spending more thanking them for this.
Why should I pay it? They've lent it, which it wasn't needed. They put up prices, and then they tell you they foreclose on your house because of money that they've lent you.
Because everyone's in debt. I'm in debt. You're in debt. Anyone with a mortgage is in debt. Countries are in debt. We're in debt. America's in debt. France is in debt. Germany's in debt. Who's got it all?
No,
it's a serious question.
The Illuminati.
It's magic into existence.
Who do we owe it all? But who do we owe it all to? Is it the big American bank? I genuinely have no idea.
No, because it's magic into existence. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's double sided.
It's just
nobody.
We need quantitative squeezing, man. We need
to use Ash's analogy. Someone somewhere is holding an IOU, saying to the British government, "You've got to pay us £10 billion every year."
Okay.
We are paying.
I'm very sorry.
Okay.
I'm very sorry, but we're going to have to leave this for next time.
Continue.
It's fair to say that Philip has set the cat amongst the pigeons again. Let me say to my producers,
sorry,
we're going to have to give up calling him the money man because he's not interested.
The anti-money man.
the gold man.
The gold guy.
That is Goldman No Sacks. Okay. That is Phillip Ullmann, who is the Manna man. He believes in the Manna journey. He's also a writer at the Daily Telegraph, and he has a website that's very extensive, and it features me, which is very nice.
Like all good websites.
We're not going to be back next Thursday, but we'll be back the Thursday after with more, it's fair to say, cat amongst the pigeons financial advice. Back in a mo.
Bye.